All right, so I think we're ready to do this. I'm going to drill a pilot hole from the inside, and then I'm gonna drill with the hole saw down from the outside. So, got a 1/4-inch bit, which should match my 1/4-inch hole saw arbor. And that should get me a perfectly aligned 6-inch hole. So after I finished drilling that pilot hole for the hole saw, I cut up a cardboard box and taped it right underneath the hole that I was about to drill. This is just to catch all the steel shavings from the roof as I cut through it, because those steel shavings are sharp, and anywhere that they can get a chance to nick the paint inside your van, they can cause a nucleation point for rust. So it did seem like it was rather important to use something rated to cut through the steel of the roof of a vehicle. This went actually pretty easily until it hit the sound deadening material, at which point I did have to use a shop knife to cut through that. The saw just didn't really want to chew it. So after I finished drilling that hole, I went over the edge with a deburring tool like the kind used for plumbing. That's just to prep the edge to receive primer and to deburr it so that it's not scraping up the plastic on the inside of the fan. Painting the edge of this hole is a measure to prevent against rust. There's a reason that this whole vehicle is covered with paint from the factory, and it's not just looks. It prevents rust from forming on the surface of the steel when it comes in contact with moisture. So since we have breached that layer of paint by cutting through it, we need to add it back in. So while I'm waiting on the primer to dry up there, I'm messing around with this fan. Now, the instructions on this fan say that it should go into a 6 1/4-inch hole. That hole saw that I got over there is actually 6 inches, which actually isn't a problem because the outer diameter of the part that actually sits under the flange and goes through the hole is under 6 inches. The only issue is these wires here, which we had pinned to the inside of the underside of the flange. So those needed a little bit of clearance, but as it turns out, you can just unscrew this little piece that was holding them in. They come with these little screws here, and that exit hole is completely underneath the roof. So I don't even have to worry about any interference with the roof with the cables. Just got to remove the pin from there, and a 6-inch hole will work just fine. So here's what we got as a backing board. This is 2 pieces of 1/2-inch plywood, adhesive together with construction adhesive. The hole is just cut out with a jigsaw because I didn't have the hole saw yet. And there's a notch there to accommodate the cables coming out the side of the fan. Now, it kind of works as an interference fit, so maybe it'll fit well, and I won't need to tack this up with anything as I'm screwing down into it. So the goal of this is to be something solid for the screws to dig into when we put them through the roof. That's actually pretty essential to the way these roof fans work, and it's something that I haven't seen done on a lot of the demo videos with this dome fan, which really ought to be done. So I'm gonna be doing it here. So there's that interference fit that I was talking about. It's pretty close to the edge on either side, which is how I wanted it to be. So we're gonna try to drill some pilot holes, I think, and then put the screws in. I used a decent quality butyl rubber tape as a gasket between the flange of the fan and the roof of the vehicle. At the lower spots between the ribs, I added a couple of extra layers of tape. At the thickest spot, it is 3 layers thick, and at the thinnest spot, it is only 1 layer thick. So once I had the fan seated in the place that I wanted it, I went with a small drill bit and drilled in some pilot holes before following those with screws that went all the way down through the backboard on the bottom edge. Once I had the fan screwed in, I went around the edge with lap sealant. All the way around the edge, I took it in quarters, and then I put a little dab of it on top of each of the screws. So in order to locate the 6-inch hole that I need to drill in the ceiling board, which I have sitting out in the yard there. I've made a cardboard template that fits over top of this hole, and I have marked a couple of holes where it lines up with my riv nuts. So I should be able to locate them much like this. 1 and 2. I believe that should be where the fan should go, right there. All right, I have this guy prepped and ready to go. Those 2 locating holes, I stuck them through with sticks into the pre-drilled holes that I have in there. So that's ready for a hole to be drilled in it. Luckily, we do have a bit of room for play. This is like just the very minimum size hole, but this flange, like, it really allows room for error, so I'm not too concerned. Cutting the ceiling went the same as the roof. I cut it with the same hole saw after drilling a pilot hole with a 1/4-inch bit. Once I got that hole drilled out, I hung the ceiling back inside the van and it fit perfectly. So then I finally finished it up by adding in the trim piece. This is what it looks like now that's finally installed. Working on the roof rack right now, but you can see I finished up the ceiling. Just press that button and push up, and that opens the fan. The button's right there to turn it on. It's not wired up yet, but it will be. And that's how high it sits with it open. I'm just gonna put a board across the side of here and it should be able to hide it pretty easily alongside the solar panels.